Hello, Mieke Bruggeman here. For our second tutorial, we are going to be talking about vibrato as well as scoop techniques. And before I get into any of the exercises, I wanted to just offer up a very, very brief discussion of vibrato throughout history. I think it's something that's just important to start to become aware of, so that as you're playing through various jazz charts, some jazz charts may require a different approach to vibrato than others. So, in the late 19th and early 20th century, up until then, very little to no vibrato was used in any of the classical ensembles, military bands, orchestras. And now the saxophone wasn't invented until the mid-1800s, and at about that time, there were inventions for string players, such as the chin rest and the cello spike, that made it much easier for string players to then start to explore the use of vibrato, and they weren't encumbered by certain physical limitations that had existed prior to those inventions. Also in the early 1900s, there were a lot of popular dance orchestras, and as the saxophone slowly started to gain more popularity, they started being incorporated into these dance orchestras, which sort of put the string players' jobs at a little bit of a risk, but they were wise. A lot of them were very wise, and they doubled on the saxophone. And I believe that in transferring the instruments, changing from string to saxophone, they also transferred a lot of their techniques, including their use of vibrato. And so if you listen to any 1920s, 30s saxophone players and their vibrato, it's very different than 100 years later in the 2020s. And so professional musicians are aware of that and are able to apply the correct use of vibrato, as well as through their practicing, they start to develop their own personal preference as to how they want to use their vibrato, and that contributes to their own personal sound. So it's something that even if I give you these exercises, these exercises that I'm giving you are really just about the mechanics of the vibrato. So in order to switch and make it to being a really musical thing, the biggest thing you can do is listen. Start to find your personal musical heroes, whether they're on saxophone or on some other instrument or vocals or strings, and practice trying to emulate exactly the way they're doing their vibrato, because then it's just going to start to become incorporated into your own playing. So with that said, I have two exercises for you for vibrato, and then we'll get into being able to do the fun scoops. So for this first exercise, you're going to need a metronome. There's lots of free metronome apps out there. If you don't have access to that, then you can still use this video as a little bit of a reference. And so we're going to start by setting the metronome to 60 beats per minute. And then I'm going to start by making that physical connection and singing. And I'm going to sing three different ways. I'm going to sing using a va, 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 which incorporates a bit more of the tongue, and then a wah, 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 as well as a ya, 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 ya. Each of those different crazy words incorporate different parts of what you need to create vibrato. And so we're going to also, with the metronome, we're going to start with quarter notes, move to eighth notes, then triplets, then 16th notes for one measure each. So we're going to start by saying it first, then we'll try it with the saxophone. So, okay, I'm going to start with va. Va, 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 va. Va, 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 va. Va, 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 va. Okay, now we're going to try it on a wah. Ready? Wah, 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 wah. Wah, 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 wah. Excuse me, I'm gonna grab some water. And then we're gonna do it on a ya. Okay, on a ya. Here we go. Ya, 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 ya. Ya, 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 ya. Ya, 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 ya. And you can tell that on the ya, that used a lot of my tongue. So now we're going to play it with the saxophone. And I'm going to start on B. B is a good, just kind of easy starting off point. And I'm going to try and, I'm going to stop this for a second. I'm going to try and get the pitch to waver just like I was doing with the lip and the tongue and jaw vibrato. So here's on the va. I'm going to try that first. Okay, now on a wah. And now on a ya. Okay, that gives you that idea. Then once it'll take some practice, right? Because you've got to get used to the sort of subtle muscle movements that are going on. So even if it sounds a little wackadoodle, just keep at it, and eventually you'll be able to really even it out. Once that starts to feel comfortable, then work your way down chromatically. So starting on B flat, then going to A, then going to A flat, then going to G, F sharp, and then all the way down to F, as well as working your way up chromatically to the F that's on the top line of the treble clef. Okay, and then and you can also experiment with increasing the tempo. So let's see what happens. I'm going to put the metronome on 70, and I'm going to play a B flat this time. So that gives you an idea of that. And then once you start to feel comfortable going from the B chromatically down to F, and then the B up chromatically to the F above that, then just keep working on that exercise through the entire range of the saxophone, from your high F all the way down to your low B flat. And then the next one, so there is classical vibrato and there's jazz vibrato. And jazz vibrato, typically, there's kind of a wide variety of jazz vibrato nowadays. Typically, it's a little bit wider. Typically, you might start the tone and then start to add some vibrato to it. And so the exercise that I have for you is, again, starting on the B, setting your metronome to 60, and instead of doing a full measure of quarter notes, a full measure of eighth notes, etc., you're just going to do 2 counts of quarter notes, then shift to 2 counts of eighth notes, 2 counts to triplets, and 2 counts of 16th notes, so that you get used to holding it out and then eventually speeding that vibrato up, which creates a nice sound. So this is what this sounds like. continue down a half step. Etc., etc. So again, that's really to just focus on getting the mechanics of it down and the coordination of those subtle movements. Then what I recommend is being able to practice the vibrato and put it into a melodic context. So I have included the head chart for My Funny Valentine and Star-Crossed Lovers. And what my recommendation is for you to play through either all or some of one of those tunes without any vibrato whatsoever. And I also recommend that you try recording yourself playing it. Then go back, record yourself again, and try to play vibrato on any note that's, at least a quarter note. You could try adding it on to some eighth notes as well, depending on the context. And then go back and listen to both versions and write down where you liked the vibrato and where it seemed like it may have been too much or you just didn't like it. And then the last thing is to listen to at least 3 different versions, if you can, of the song that you're working on, and try to play it like the professionals are playing it, and specifically focusing and listening in on the use of vibrato. For a tune like My Funny Valentine, I really like listening to vocalists, Ella Fitzgerald, Johnny Hartman. There's a plethora of amazing singers out there. And because My Funny Valentine has lyrics to it, and so you always want to kind of be thinking about not just the dots on the page, but the lyrics that go with it, which will inform how you want to phrase things. So I'm going to do just real quick, I'm going to play the first 8 bars of the melody of My Funny Valentine without vibrato, and then I'll play it with on all the notes, and then I'm going to try and find some middle ground between the two. So here's My Funny Valentine without any vibrato. Suck that spit up. Okay, that last note sure was long, and playing without any vibrato, I don't know, what do you think? Did it seem to get a little boring, or did it seem to settle the sound? Okay, and so here's My Funny Valentine, same thing, vibrato on all the notes. Okay, what do you think that time on that last note especially? Did you like the use of vibrato throughout the whole 8 counts? Or do you think it could have been switched up a little bit? Okay, so here's my interpretation of My Funny Valentine, combining a little bit of vibrato and without. So that's one idea. So again, listen. Find the people that you really want to emulate and practice it just like they're trying to play it. And I think you'll have a lot of success. Now, there is also the scoop, and there is the scoop up and the scoop down. So we're going to talk about the scoop going up, and we affectionately call it the doit. So there are three parts of this: the do, the o, and the oit. Okay. So what I recommend, first, get that physical connection going and say that word slowly. Doit, doit. Okay. Now, when you add the saxophone, we're going to start on B. Here's the do. When I go to the O, I'm going to bend the pitch flat. Right? So if this is the pitch, I'm bending it way down. And then I'm going to bring it back up. Excuse me. And so the T is the very ending. And you can either end that with the tongue on the reed or with the throat. So that was with my tongue on the reed. Doit. And this is with the throat. Yeah. Okay, so eventually you can also start to experiment with starting in the O part where the pitch is really flat. Right? So in that case, I kind of started with the pitch flat and then I brought it up to the pitch. Now, beware. As fun as this is to do, it needs to be properly placed. Because it's so fun, sometimes students like to do it all the time. And that can really affect the pitch of the saxophone section that you're working with, as well as the ensemble sound. So if you're constantly doing that, the audience is not going to be pleased, nor are your colleagues who are playing with you, and your classmates who are playing with you, because it's just going to be affecting the pitch way too much. So you have to be really strategic about where you want to place those. Let's see. Okay, so now there's also the scoop going down. Right? And that is dia. So make the physical connection. Dia, dia. And I'm going to start on the B, and as I'm saying D, that's going to be straight and in tune. But then I'm going to bend the pitch, and as I bend the pitch down, then I'm going to stop on the B flat. Then I'm starting on the B flat, I'm bending the pitch down to the A and ending on the A. Okay, and so that's a good practice to be able to get this all coordinated. You can also try experimenting with increasing the intervals. So I'm going to start on B to B flat, then B to A, then B to A flat, then B to G. Etc., etc. So that's a nice way of being able to try to practice those two scoop exercises. The last thing I wanted to do is to, again, play My Funny Valentine and incorporate some of those scoops for you and the vibrato. Okay, so that just gives you a little bit of a sampling on how to incorporate the vibrato and the scoop down as well as the scoop up. Now go wash your hands and practice.